Hi everyone, this is Killshot from 99 Gaming. This is The Walking Dead Season 9, What If Negan Saves Rick? We've talked about Rick and Negan's relationship quite a bit over the last couple months. Today we're going to take it to a different level because there's some questions that just have to be answered. We're going to throw a couple small spoilers in here. They're not going to be major things. We talked about that the other night. But one of the spoilers is the fact, you have been warned, it's real minor, so you don't have to turn away yet. Appreciate everybody being here. That Negan is out of his jail cell and kind of roaming around a little bit. And the reason I want to throw that out to everybody is because I think it is going to come into play, and it could potentially be related to Rick's exit. These are the what-if scenarios. These are not proven. There's going to be a lot of speculation, but I've got some questions I have to throw out there. I'm not going to keep you guys too long. I want to sort of break back in. We used to do the Chill with Kills and the noon streams, but as we get closer and closer to the Walking Dead season, we're going to start doing these streams again. Also, as a reminder, we will do our Fear countdown at 8 o'clock tonight, and we will do a reaction to the Fear episode after that. That'll be about 10:15. So here's the question that I have for the group is, why does Rick even bother visiting Negan? He's had him locked up for 18 months, and we've heard a little bit of the dialogue, and they're not over it. So I'm going to throw this question out to the 999 Army. What's the point at this? If you're going to have him locked up and your goal is just to keep him imprisoned, Rick doesn't seem like the type of person that needs to antagonize and sort of, rub Negan's nose in it over and over again that, hey, we've got you locked up and you can't participate in this. You would think that locking him up would be punishment enough. So I think it's a little bit bigger than that. And I think that Rick actually needs Negan to bring closure, to bring peace, to carry out Carl's agenda, and also to have a future plan. Michael, it's a good point. Michael Curie says, so Negan doesn't go insane. Yeah, but even if he goes insane, I guess, what's Rick's value in that? And Fluff, I think you hit the nail right there. I think Rick is at a bad emotional state, and I think he's picking his brain. Rick needs to know what it's like to live through this brutality, and how Negan has done it, and how Negan can go from brutal to somewhat in control, and brutal to somewhat in control. I don't think Rick is very good at that. And I think this is therapy for Rick, and he knows that Negan has dealt with this and dealt with managing and controlling a lot of people. And I think Rick is struggling as a leader, especially with Maggie throwing it out there that I'm going to show you what a leader's like. Rick's at a crossroads. So Brandon Brown says, I've been saying since I heard Rick is leaving that Negan is going to be the leader again, but it's going to be a different person, the morality is definitely going to be different. So the question that I have for all of you is, who unlocks the cage? And the reason I think this is important is because I don't think Negan will escape. I think when Negan said to Rick, when do I get to see it? I think he's already seen it. I think he's already taken a sneak peek. He sees society growing. He doesn't want to leave it. He wants to be a part of it. But he's sort of throwing it out there, when do I get to see it? And he's testing Rick to see if he has any inkling that he knows that Negan's sort of been roaming around. Lisa Khaleesi says, I believe he's trying to get Negan to change so he doesn't need to lead the way Negan has. Good point. It's a good point. Steph the Cuervo Queen says, I think someone tries to kill him in the cell but fails. That's a possibility as well. Deborah says Jadis and Ann, and I agree with that. I think Jadis unlocks the cage. Father G is a possibility as well. I've heard that from several people, that he gives him the chance to sort of be free. Is it possible that Father G unlocks the cell with the deal that Negan roams around and doesn't escape? Would Father G be willing to take that chance that someone has had so much power, that someone has been that on the borderline of being psychotic? Would Father G trust that Negan could roam around the gates and then come back in? That's a huge step. I'm not sure about that, but Father G has been known to lock people out when he could open the church door, so maybe this is a little bit of repenting on his part as well. I've got a couple bullet points that I want to talk about. This will not be a super long stream. We're going to keep this about 15 minutes. This is going to be our Sunday morning stream, so mark your calendars. Every Sunday at noon, we're going to start ramping up our what-if scenario again, and you might actually see two. We may do this on Sunday. We may do it on Tuesday, depending on the topics. And if you have a what-if topic you'd like to discuss, you can send it to me at KILZHOT, or post it on our Walking Dead 99 Army page. Let me know what you'd like to talk about, some different scenarios, because there's so many ways the season could play out, and we're going to try to analyze as many of them as we possibly can. Let me jump over to Ron Burgundy Moore. I think it's unlikely that Rick unlocks the cell after the jail is on fire. It's a possibility. That fire, and, we see a little bit of the, this is made out of cement, and the fire does look like it's kind of roaming up, so someone could try to take Negan out. Barbie G says, I think the only reason Rick is keeping Negan alive is because of Carl's note. So, Barbie G, I think that's a good point. But, once again, I think the follow-up question to that would be, why even bother going down and talking to him? I mean, I guess he has to feed him, and he's just not going to say, here's your food. He's down there keeping him alive anyway, so I guess it kind of comes with the territory. So a couple bullet points that I have is, I think, emotionally, Rick is in a worse place than we all realize. He looks like he has a plan. He looks like he's rebuilding. But he's still confused about which direction is going to be best to take the group, especially when you still have these minor arguments and disagreements, and the writing is on the wall literally about people are still saviors and they're still Negan. So another follow-up question for the 999 Army. When you see this graffiti and you see this stuff on the wall, do you think that there is a small contingency of saviors who still want to be saviors and want to break away? Or do you think that that is an internal sabotage to get the groups to hate the saviors more, and it's to turn everybody against some of the saviors that may be reaching out for help? I'm going to read a couple of these comments as well. That is a great question. Boylan Andy says, do you think Maggie will have a discussion with Negan? Not in the jail cell, I don't. But I do think Maggie and Negan will cross paths. And I'm going to answer that question in 1 second. Backfire says, old habits die hard. Some are still going to be Negan. I'm kind of on the fence with this one. I think that the group is more receptive toward peace, but I think there's a few people that are just kind of stoking the fire a little bit. Peggy Sullivan says, a few still want to be saviors. Okay, good point. Let me go back to Boylan Andy and kind of address that. I really have a feeling that before Maggie leaves, and when Lauren said Maggie's story is open-ended, I'm on board with the fact she leaves, but I think she leaves partially because there could be a hint of the whispers, but I think she's frustrated. I really think she gets Michonne's storyline from the comics. And I think she's going to come face-to-face with Negan, and she can't pull the trigger, and she doesn't want to stay and have that constant reminder of Negan being there. So that's kind of a sidebar, but I'm also going to touch on really the whole purpose of this, how Negan saves Rick. There's two ways that Negan can save Rick. One is he's providing therapy to Rick. So he's going to have to get Rick back in that emotional state, and in a weird sort of way, Rick's going to see what he doesn't want to be and what Negan has transitioned into. But I don't think that's where it stops. I think that Rick's storyline, his exit, is 100% wholeheartedly tied to Negan. I think that Negan will either provide the exit, provide the rescue, provide the cover, but when they say, and they said Rick's exit is big, and that's what they're saying, getting on the back of a white horse and leading walkers away from the group, to me, is not big. You can leave your thoughts and comments right here. If you're watching the playback, leave your thoughts and comments and tell me, is that good enough? Does that quench your appetite Is that going to be like, yes, Rick was great, for all these seasons, 8 seasons, and yes, he rides off on a white horse and saves a few people? For me, it does not quench my appetite at all. Has zero effect on me whatsoever. It's tried and true. It's dead. I don't even want to see it. I don't even want to entertain that idea. So it needs to be something big. And if it is going to be something big, I think that the combination of Rick and Negan, if Rick can leave and change Negan, that's a big story. That is a much, much bigger story. If Negan can become the protagonist, if he can become the person that saves people, that ultimately saves them from the Whispers a little bit later on, if he can learn to lead the way that Rick could have left, if they can write that into the story and leave Rick's exit open-ended, that would be, I think, somewhat shocking to the group, because if we can be brought back just to accept Negan, because you can't forget the Glenn situation. So if Carl's legacy was to get Rick to bring all the groups together, if Rick leaves, either leaving the group or through death, I'm going to ask the group this question right now. What is Rick's legacy? What could Rick leave behind that would be so big that would make Carl's death make sense and would have a lasting impact on the people who live, the show, his family? What could that legacy be? Hope, Brittany says. I agree. Change. That, to quote Madison, no one's gone until they're gone. Sorry, had to bring some Madison in here. A new world. So, if Rick can convert Negan, then it might be somewhat worth it to fight the bigger fight later on. And in a paradoxical sort of way, Rick sparing Negan and Negan's therapy on Rick is that constant reminder. This is how I think Negan saves Rick. If Rick would have killed him, if he would have just cut his throat, let him bleed out, that constant reminder would not have been there of... And I know Rick said it was a reminder to all the people, so that's part of it. That everybody that goes by and sees him in this cage understands that, oh, this is what's going to happen. But I think in a bigger picture, it changes Rick to prepare for the future. And I think there's twofold that's going to be a part of that. I know this is not the most popular. You know what? It's becoming more popular, so let's not just discount that right now. I think Rick has incentive to find a cure. And I think Rick is going to have to get to a point where he can step away and know that everybody's not going to kill each other. Those two things, I think, are going to be big underlying factors. And also, I think after 18 months, if Negan is slipping out of the jail cell and then coming back in and slipping out in the woods, that he's seeing what's going on. I don't think Negan will have a desire to hurt Rick again. I think Negan will have a desire to protect. So what if Carl's legacy gets transferred to Rick and Rick's legacy gets transferred to Negan? Then all three are aligned. Carl's death meant something. And I know a lot of us were scratching our head like, why'd they kill Carl? What happened? This was unnecessary. Well, to advance the story. And if it goes full circle, and the reason to kill Carl was ultimately to get to Negan being one of the leaders and one of the people that has to save them in the end, then Carl's death does have a little bit more relevance. Maybe not all the relevance that we want, but it does make it a little bit more important. And then the question is going to be, how does Rick leave the show? So we're getting close to 15 minutes. I got one last question I have for the 999 Army, and then we are going to put it on hold until tonight at 8 o'clock, and we will do our Fear Countdown. I know a lot of you have seen the Fear episode. So if you were a betting person right here, right now, if Negan and Rick are aligned, Does Rick die? Does Negan save Rick? And how could Negan get Rick out of the fray and protect him? I'm still thinking Negan knows a little bit more. Remember, the helicopter? Jadis knows about it, a.k.a. Ann. Negan knows about it. So perhaps there's a Jadis-Negan connection. Rick gets bit. Rick gets stabbed. Rick is hurt along the bridge. The group goes by. And maybe it's Negan that pulls him into the woodwork and gets him out of there and ultimately helps save him in a physical manner. So I think there's several things that we could take a look at. Cats 1964 says Negan knows more. Emmy says Negan saves. Negan saves Rick, but he may still die. Very, very, that's a possibility. B-Jack, I don't disagree with that. But the effort to save Rick could be what people see and what they appreciate. That would force the group to start to look at Negan in a different light. It still will not be enough for Maggie. I equivocate Maggie to kind of my own perspective. And I think one of our very, very valuable subs just got accidentally hidden. Sorry, Lisa. That's Tommy's bad. We'll unblock you. Sometimes we're a little quick. No hard feelings. There you go. All right. We're back. Okay, we have hit 16 minutes, and we're a little rusty with our comments at this point. I'm going through my thought process, and then I see somebody that is like super outstanding accidentally get blocked. So no hard feelings there. I want to thank everybody for being here. As I said, this is a quick stream, about 15 minutes. This is Negan Saves Rick. If you didn't get a chance to watch this live, you're watching the playback, leave your thoughts and comments below. We will expand upon this throughout the week. Rick and Negan, definitely a much bigger story. It's the only thing, I think, that can be big enough for Rick to exit the show. There has to be some interchanging going on there. Thanks, everybody. Give this video a thumbs up if you have not already. Appreciate everybody being here on a Sunday morning. Mark your calendars, because at noon we will do this every Sunday between now and all season long for The Walking Dead. Once again, hopefully you guys are on board with the Fear Train. We're having a good time this season. We will be back 8 o'clock tonight, and we will be doing our countdown. We'll talk a little bit about tonight's episode. And then afterwards at 10:15, we will be reacting to it. Thanks, everybody. I will talk to you all soon, and look forward to seeing everybody at 8 o'clock. Peace.